All right. Welcome back to our lecture series, How to Become an Architect. Are you clapping for me already? Over the coming weeks, we'll be joined by young spatial practitioners who will shed a light on their professional paths beyond the cap and gown. They'll unveil to transition from education to architectural practice, and together we'll explore their journeys in discovering their unique creative voices. Today we have the privilege to present to you Johnny Lea of Traumnovelle. You might know Traumnovelle from the Belgian pavilion, Eurotopie, at the 2018 Venice Biennale, but a lot has happened since then. While they continue to curate and design exhibitions, such as Style Gongo at CIFA recently, they've also ventured into a range of architectural competitions around Brussels, Charleroi, and beyond. They've also completed one of their first build projects, a very clever adaptive reuse scheme, turning a former industrial building into a center of engineering. So the main reason why we wanted to invite them today is because we feel like they are in a pivotal point of their practice, where they're starting to make the transition from a more ephemeral architecture of scenographies and curation to what's traditionally understood as a capital A architecture of building and master planning. But how do they do so without forgetting what lies at the roots of their practice, their distinctive conceptual and speculative prowess? And that's what we hope to find out today. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to present to you Johnny Lea of Traumnovelle.
Can you hear me properly? Yes, great. But yeah, first of all, thank you for this amazing introduction. I think you said more about the office that I will say. But I guess that the topic that you wanted to address or you want to address and how to become an architect, I will try to come with some thoughts to share. And also, thank you for all of you for being here during this lunchtime. I have to confess that we never say no to an invitation, especially when it's in Italy, but Eindhoven it's fine too. So I think we should have missed something, because in our lectures, we did our first lecture. It was in Roma in 2014 with Nancy Goldring, that was one of the founders of the practice site that are absolutely amazing. And at the end of the lecture, she came back to us and said that you should always talk about what you know. And I think we're doing the opposite. We always talk about what we don't know yet. So that will be for today. For us, the question is, how to ask the right questions, and it's for us way more important than finding answers to bad questions. But at the end of the lecture, the talk, if you have answers, please let me know. So for today, we've been asked to reflect a bit on this broad question, how to become an architect, with this subtitle, From Concept to Concrete. Let's see where it will be. So we are usually presented as a young office or an early career practitioner, as you did it. And somehow it's something dangerous, because people want to put you in that box in which you are young, so harmless, you have nothing to say. But at the same time, we do think since a long time that we are all kind of old enough to, do stuff or have things to say. And at the same time, we are also from Belgium, and we know that Belgium is this small country with no political power, so exactly people are not neither listening to what they are saying. So we are Belgian and young, and this allows also us to do whatever we want to say, because at the end no one is really listening, maybe. So Traumnovelle, the office, we created the office in 2014 while we were still students, in the third year, because we had this feeling that the world to come will maybe be a bit tricky, and we wanted to create like a space in which we could continue to address the questions that we wanted to address. So now we have, and I hate this word, I hate this word, and I hate this word too, but that's another topic. We have this word multidisciplinary. I think that we are only doing architecture, and architecture through different like fields and scale, but always like combining elements. So we are 3 partners. I'm here to represent like part of the partners and then the band, the office. The first project that we delivered to the world, let's say, was Eurotopie. That was part of the project that, so when we created the office, it's another story that we can maybe share another time. We set up in a cafe, like a nice Portuguese, very dirty cafe. And then we took, like, after a few beers, like a paper, and we wrote like a list of projects that we wanted to do. Like, okay, we want to do this, to work on that, okay, with no clients. Eurotopie was one of them. And I won't discuss it neither more today, but the issue that we have right now is that we finished that list. So as you explained already, like we could try to, I could try to explain that the office is structured around different parts. So we're doing like scenographies, pavilions, exhibitions, and then like more conventional architecture, let's say. Now with 5 construction sites, student housing, medical center, pavilions, and all different projects and all different scale. I'm also teaching in an architectural school, and I'm teaching architecture in an art school. The starting point of the office was this sentence by Berlage: to build is to serve. So the questions that we often raise are, what do we build and who does it serve? Something else which is very important for us and that we like to say, state, and advocate for is this: everything is fiction. Because for us, for us, what makes us human are all those collective acts and constructions that we're making. And so what we're trying to highlight with that is that there is nothing more frightening than the natural order or this enclosed reality. And using this term fiction is just a way to say that those are stories that you need to either to engage with, to accept, to deconstruct, to destroy. There was this Michel Foucault philosopher that was kind of trendy, I think 20 years ago, and now he's not that much, but I decided to be proud of still being in love with Michel Foucault. And he said that, so he's a philosopher, and at some point he said that in his life he only wrote fictions. Like, okay, interesting, and then I continued to read it. And he's explaining that for him, like philosophy and what he's doing, it's making visible what is visible. And fiction is the tool for that. So for this lunchtime, bon appétit. So we would like to seize this opportunity, this moment, to discuss with you how, as architects, that we are all, we can contribute to the world. So we had like planetary lockdowns, wars at all borders, and so now, in this very special moment, crisis everywhere, we will talk about uselessness. Could uselessness be the key to finally being useful? Of course, investigating uselessness is a way of being useful, but maybe in an unexpected way. Do you hear me well? Yeah. Perfect. I still have to find my space with the mic, so I will. But in a few minutes, I will be perfectly settled. In a lecture given by Natalini, by one of the founders of Super Studio, in 71 at the AA, he said, "If design is merely an inducement to consume, then we must reject design. If architecture is merely the codifying of the bourgeois models of ownership and society, then we must reject architecture. If architecture and town planning are merely the formalization of present unjust social divisions, then we must reject town planning and its cities. Until all design activities are aimed towards meeting primary needs, until then, design must disappear. We can live without architecture." So, again, this question, how to be useful to society? How can architecture be useful? Of course, what is architecture? And to this question, we had a former student from the Rietveld that had an answer. Yeah, I mean, it's simple. It's a sculpture with plumbing. Yeah, okay. And it's true, but architecture is also more than that. And for Hollein, it's everything is architecture. But for us, I think there is a reason why history is also so important in architecture. Because, I mean, most of the time, let's say in mathematics, when you have a new formula, then it will erase the former one, which is not the case here. Both remain possibly valid. So again, how to be useful to society and how to be a useful architect. Knowing that architecture is a luxury Italian product for the amusement of rich people, is it relevant to try to address society? There is this architect from the US, Philip Johnson, that said, and it's quite famous, that architects are luxurious whores. So yeah, we are still at the beginning of our discussion, so we still have hope a bit. So, but yeah. The main issue that we have right now, that we see at least, is this urge to be useful, to be efficient, to be productive, useful to your employer, useful to the market, to the and not the ecosystem, to the state, not society. And usefulness is determined by how much you consume or how much you produce. Those are the two criteria. Universities, schools here, they are a threat. In so much that they act also as devices to prepare you to be useful for this market. But we also have to keep in mind, and yeah, I'm coming maybe with a lot of good news, bad news, that can be bad ones, good. The market is full of architects already. So even if you wanted to produce and be part of this useful act, there is no room anymore. This means that a lot of things are also possible. You can, of course, try to travel a bit, find a place where they're still looking for architects. To be, and it's also part of my experience, to be an unpaid CAD monkey somewhere in China, or to think and act. Yeah, it's always, yeah. We are facing the biggest threat humankind has ever known. Just saying that, we've heard that so many times, and we see like all the collapses that are around, so that it's at the same time quite boring to just say it again, like, guys, it's happening. So the ecosystem, yeah, already change of era. Construction is responsible for 40% of the CO2. Everything has been redesigned, especially here. no space untouched. But let's not be too guilty as architects, because we need to keep in mind that no one needs architects. Only 5% of the constructions on the planet are made with an architect. So the architectural new fantasy is this urge for economy of means. So it's about how you can produce more with less. And around us and amongst us, we discuss about things of the market, circular economy, sustainability, participatory process, labeling, and not that much about politics, truth, space, labor. Some architects do. The Belgian architect Jan de Wilder, that you might know, we met him once, and we asked him to about what is his, let's say, like political involvement in his projects. And then he answered back by a quote from another Belgian artist, Francis Alice. It was very smart. Sometimes doing something political can become poetical. Sometimes doing something poetical can become political. Like, okay, yeah, that's a perfect answer. So for tonight, we could also say that sometimes doing something useful can become useless. And sometimes doing something useless can become useful. So maybe architecture should be useless. Useless to the market, useless to the destruction of the planet, and maybe architecture could be something other than just like a commodity. We'll now continue with a definition, because we didn't really talk about what is this word. And then we'll discuss about 4 possible ways that we see to become useless. Retreat, negation, asceticism, and operaism. Of course, there is no perfect recipe. And today, let's pretend that we need still to be useless. A definition moment. So, uselessness is the fact of being of no use, or of not working or achieving what is needed. So this definition already raises a lot of questions, like no use to whom, to what, how do we define what is needed, and should we aim to achieve it? First strategy, retreat. So after the fall of the curtain wall, there were a few Russian architects that called themselves like the paper architects, that finally received their own culture, but also the culture from abroad in their school. So they received like the constructivists, but also Aldo Rossi. They were completely bored by their positions as draftsmen in corporate offices. And so they decided to just do competitions for a Japanese magazine in which there was not so much to win. And they started to win all of them. And that mostly because they were, again, bored during their lifetime, their days. And then all the nights they were doing those projects at the same time as if their life depended on that, and also at the same time not at all. They had like a very like broad international recognition, and from the West they were seen as, okay, the Russians that are against the state and super cool ones, like, okay, fine. And if you read like the Russians articles, they were like the proud examples of what like Russia could be. And for them, they were just like, doing projects. There was one specific duo called Brodsky and Utkin that were, if you don't know them, go for it. Maybe a side footnote. There is no image, there is one, and I'm talking about a lot of projects and images. So I'm trying also to work with your frustration, maybe, and I invite you to to go for it after. So Brodsky and Utkin, one of the projects from them that I love the most, so we'll have to imagine it. So the project is called The Ship of Fools. You are in Moscow with buildings everywhere, and then you have one building, above all the rest, and on the top of it there is a long boat on which they are with all their friends drinking to whatever. And they were famous, and even as famous that they were also invited to the States, in which a movie production asked them to propose images and projects for a movie. And at the end they said, no, thank you, we don't need it. And there is this movie called Where the Dreams Come From, and the studio used their images. There is another one called Michael Beloff that was actually the best of all of them. He was mastering all the techniques that architecture had. At some point, he was invited at Yokohama 2050, a very important international competition that happened in the 80s. Then he arrived and he looked around and he saw what he called a lot of greedy architects. I think that, Rem was there. And he just decided to go back. And after that, he settled his office with him, one partner, and he's only designing Palladio houses, because people like Palladio. Connected to that, there is a text about Malevich's work, which is called the praise of laziness and laziness as a truth of mankind. I will read the quote. Artists from the East were lazy and poor because the entire system of insignificant factors did not exist. Therefore, they had time enough to concentrate on art and laziness. Even when they did produce art, they knew it was in vain, it was nothing. Maybe we could replace that with architecture. They knew it was in vain, it was nothing. So in both scenarios, for Michael Beloff or Brodsky and Utkin, the architects decided to retreat from usefulness to uselessness, and then somehow to return to some kind of usefulness. So, of course, when we say the word retreat, we can think about Thoreau, who wrote about his life alone outside of cities. But while, and I think it's important to mention it, he was also really active with the cities on a political level. He was always just at the border, in retreat, but still there, in this useful uselessness. I don't speak too fast or too slow. You still have a bit of hope? Cool. Yeah, every time that I'm mentioning those projects, I also have me in mind, and I'm just amazed by those people. And negation. I would prefer not to. The radical negation. I would prefer not to. So it's the sentence by one character from Melville, it's the author, book. It's a book called Bartleby. And in this book, there is the office assistant at the clerk that one day he stopped being useful and just answered to all the questions, I would prefer not to. Even at the end, when when the boss was asking him to leave, he said, I would prefer not to. And this I would prefer not to, isn't it somehow the most radical possible act in a society where you are asked to say yes, yes I want more, but every time that you start with a no or I would prefer not to, then somehow you become like an activist. Like, okay, do you want to sit at the back of the bus, Rosa Parks? No, I would prefer not to. And even now, we have to be careful. Huh? I'm saying no, and I would prefer not to, and not this trend that we have now also of the without. It's strangely quite difficult to find examples of architects that said, I would prefer not to. As if, again, the profession was always about, this yes is more, I would prefer to. A project is a project, and if I don't do it, someone else will do it. And actually the question most of the time in architecture is more close to I would love to, but nobody wants to hire me. Another Belgian architect, sorry for that. Luc Deleu. So Luc Deleu, fantastic architect. So he's a Belgian architect, and he started his career in the 70s by two fundamental acts in the 70s. Huh? For his first show, just after the academy, he printed all the projects that he loved, Le Corbusier, and crossed them with a big pen as a way to say that it's the end of architecture. And the other major project that he did in the same year, it was called The Last Stone of Belgium. So he took a stone with the sentence written, The Last Stone of Belgium, then he went into a park and just put it there. And then he explained again, it's back in the 70s, we have built enough. The starting point of his office, called Top Office, and he's still alive and still fantastic, was to question our position and duties as architects. And another project, so for a competition for a new university, he proposed to put the university on 3 aircraft carriers, it's a very long boat, that roam the planet in the aim to grasp what he calls the urbanism. So you will do your uni by, going into that that boat, and then coming back at the end. Useless, right? Maybe because most of the clients think so too, or maybe because of personal choices. His work was, at the end, mainly produced and exhibited in art galleries. But in a way, like Bartleby, Luc Deleu decided to say, I would prefer not to. That's something that we can learn from. What is uselessness for someone can unfortunately be very useful for someone else. So we need to be very careful. Let's keep in mind that we are trying to look for how to be useless. Another Bartleby, despite his better judgment, is a French revolutionary architect called Jacques Lequeux. And so he was active in the years following the French Revolution in 1789, in a period in which France went from monarchy to republic to empire and back to republic. And at each of these changes, architects had to redevelop new tools, because, okay, so now I'm building for a king, okay, now I'm building for a state, okay, now an empire. And at the same time, they had those movements, they had the encyclopedia, and they were also kind of rediscovering the antiquity, but that's for another story. Still, the architects, they had to reinvent the nation, reinvent the state, and find the good order. Lequeux had a few ideas, although all of these ideas were rejected. And we could say that his only genius was that he took all his archives and give it to the Royal Library. Sorry, this passage is a bit boring. So he was born in Rouen, trained by another architect. But I will just sum it up. He had a very miserable life. He was found dead in his house with a big bag of coffee and few women close at his size. For one project for an arch that he had to design, he designed like an arch for the French Revolution. With like the arch, okay, some symbols, and then at the back of this document, you can read. The title also was "The Drunken People," which is funny. And on the back of this document, you can read like a lot of inscriptions. The first one was, "This drawing may save me from the guillotine." And then, "Anything for my homeland." One of Lequeux' projects that I will also invite you to look for was called Le Rendezvous sur la Bellevue, in which he assembled and collected different eras of architecture to, let's say, put them together. And that's why he is also a bit known as the barbaric architect. Two more. Asceticism. So the asceticism is a lifestyle characterized, you got it, huh? Defined by the abstinence from sensual pleasures, often for the purpose of spiritual goals. And the leader of this wonderful, because it's wonderful, useless movement nowadays is, I guess you know him, it's Pierre Vittorio Aureli with Dogma. So for them, it's taking a step out of the construction industry to then reflect on spiritual goals. In their case, architecture for architecture, not architecture play with style or structures, but just to also put back the architect as urban planner. The architecture they propose is absolutely devoid of any sensual pleasure. When you look at the plans, the project, you're dry. And it's an invitation to architects to become monks, creating plans and sections similar to Zen koans, those sentences in which they can put you in this meditative space, listen to the sound of one hand clapping. And Dogma's work is beyond utopia and dystopia, just like good and evil are two concepts that don't exist in the Zen philosophy. And the question of uselessness is of course difficult because, yes, Dogma is useless to the real estate, but the office is also surviving by teaching at the AA, where students have to pay thousands of pounds for their education, and also thanks to the art world. So in a way, we could compare Dogma to a Duchamp or Renoir, this purely autonomous piece of art, which can still perfectly fit into whatever market. In fantastic interview by Claude Parent and Paul Virilio, two French architects, from Architectural Principe, but yeah, that should be another lecture. But you should, you need to watch that. So Paul Virilio has, because in this lecture, it's in this video, it's fantastic. It's back in again in the 70s. And the video is all about concrete. So we saw the two of them, touching the concrete, explaining how wonderful it is and what you can do with it. And Paul Virilio was defending the concrete also as a way to the only material for the masses. And at some point, he discussed about this guy that we might still know, Mies van der Rohe. And he's saying that Mies van der Rohe is only about graphic, and he won't last. So for him, in '69, it was just a trend. And for them, it was really about how architecture can be an experience. And to talk a bit about Mies, so the fascination that we have right now, or that I have right now, never stopped, of course, and was able to become bigger because also we are in this very visual world. But something that people that kind of forgot a lot is that Mies van der Rohe and his architecture was way more than that. So in spite of his alleged usefulness, he was looking for something completely useless. And because of that, he also didn't build so much. And of course, he was a bit of a Bartleby, a bit of I would prefer not to. When the Nazi regime was in position, he decided to leave Germany for the US. I would prefer not to. Even if we come back to the Philip Johnson explanation, he just would prefer not to build tilted roofs. Mies, he didn't write a lot, but he explained that he was in search of this Übermensch, these new horizontal churches where the modern man could reconnect with himself. And his most important projects that he was most of the time carrying with him were those small patio houses that were walls and space for one person, always situated in a very busy environments, but in which people could go and be in this very non-productive environment. This garden, walls, one tree, the seasons, the leaves. And then the rest, the details, the techniques, was just a way to achieve this condition. Maybe the question, for him, of the spiritual space needed for the new woman or man was more useful than the respect of the required square meters. Last technique, opéraïsme. Sorry, it's a lot of references. Huh? But opéraïsme. The operaist movement that was initiated by Tony Negri and Mario Tronti, amazing guys. So they defended the idea that social progress must come from the workers who accepted to work with capitalism in order to redefine it. So I will say it again. So it's in this era of of intense fights and riots, with the left having more power, and their way they were really positioning themselves into, okay, we need to work with and within the system and sabotage it. So in this position, that in opposition to the vision where architects are positioned outside of the system and offer super utopian ideas or dystopians, this approach was really about how to fight from the inside. And the main idea being useless again, but from the inside. And in short, yeah, sabotage. Super Studio, that I mentioned just a bit before, was you know them a bit, huh? I think. Two of them, they just died recently, but long live Super Studio. Of course, you know their their collage. They were a collage, and now we see that maybe some of them are about to be built. And maybe a side note on that, there is this interview in which a journalist for the New York Times is asking Gian Piero, because it's a collage of the continuous monuments, so you have a very continuous line in the desert, and they are asking him, are you happy to see that one of your drawing from the 70s now is about to be built in Saudi Arabia? It's like, nope. Actually, so next to those collages, they also had a lot of texts explaining their view on this anti-capitalism. The first projects that they did were creating objects or furniture in which you are not really able to sit in a comfortable way, or spaces that you're not really able to understand. Like things that you can't put inside the factory line. And at some point they decided to even withdraw from architecture by then using magazines as a way to make architecture travel. Super Studio, they were frontally political. Let's architecture die, disappear. And maybe that's Kirsten Geers for Office that explained that maybe the reason why it was just impossible for them to get over this continuous line was just because when you talk about your goal, maybe it's more difficult to reach them. And at Traumnovelle, we are still naive enough to share our goals and our thoughts, and what will happen will happen. So this technique of the sabotage, this technique of being uselessness, is somehow trying to understand that we can still be part of a system, and then being this obstacle in the way. And so as Traumnovelle, as the office, that's the position that we are trying to hold. Being useless, but from the inside. Even if it seems that not being draftsmen, we are useful both to entertain with pavilions and scenographies, but also to do design space, to design office spaces. And maybe we are not useless enough, because at the start, indeed, we really aim to be useful. And as a way to conclude, in his essay, The Courage of Hopelessness by Slavoj Zizek, he said that all the revolutions, they started by this moment in which there is no hope. For instance, the Soviet Revolution, it was really, okay, there is no chance to win, we just need to do that revolution. And that's how you can see when they arrived in power, they had no plan. And he's also mentioning someone that is smoking. So every day you can think that, okay, I can stop whenever I want. And then you have, you have a cancer. Then you will stop. And so maybe what we are trying to say or want us to share is that, okay, beside this uselessness, there is no hope anymore. And then maybe we can start to act. So, of course, being useless is a tactic, a strategy. Like Super Studio saying that we withdraw from architecture, and at the same time you are really into architecture. And I wanted to finish with a quote from Sun Tzu, The Art of the War, to have a business management quotes. All warfare is based on deception, Hence, when we are able to attack, we must seem unable. When using our forces, we must appear inactive. When we are near, we must make the enemy believe we are far away. When far away, we must make him believe as we are super near. So let's all be as useless as possible in order maybe to really be useful. Thank you.